huge topic of conversation for us was peptides. We've loosely hinted at them. There's a wide variety of them, which I'm sure we'll go through today. Correct me if I'm wrong, but peptides are short chains of amino acids that are regulating growth, acting as neurotransmitters, and help with immune responses. When you define peptides to people that come in and they're like, what do I do? Here are the symptoms that I'm experiencing. How's that conversation start?
Peptides are protein sequences that will stimulate the body to secrete specific hormones, enzymes, processes. And for instance, CJC will stimulate pituitary gland to secrete somatotropes, which is growth hormone. I think medicine's going to move more into the factors of telling your body to do more. So if it's underproducing, tell it to do more. And same with testicular function, same with pituitary function, same with inflammatory responses, cytokines, which is your immune cells. Like, we can modulate these things.
What does that mean, modulate?
Modulate means, can you alter your body's biochemical process, like the system of how your immune system works, to get it to stimulate more. So, like, let's just, for instance, thymosin alpha, don't worry about the big word there. It stimulates T cells and B cells in the body to secrete more, which is your immune cells. You can get into a bunch of science with Th1 pathways and all that, but just think about your immune system mounting a bigger response. So if you had a cold or a flu or COVID, your body's going to mount an immune response, right? Spike a fever, you're going to get congested, you're going to start building up some mucus so your body can expel those things. The fever is good because these bacteria can't survive in that environment when your body's at a 101 temperature. Now, when you take thymosin alpha, you might actually get a little bit worse because you're mounting a bigger response. Now your fever's at 102, 103. Now you're building more mucus. You have a bigger headache, but you've expedited the process to eradicate that bacteria.
I'm tracking. That was a good way to describe that for sure. You've said this before, and I believe you, and I definitely have heard it float to the surface a lot. Joe Rogan's talking about different types of peptides, and you said peptides will be the game changer in medicine in the next 1 to 2 years. Why?
This is where I think the game changer is with peptides, is our bodies are so toxic and it underproduces. And we're constantly fighting different bacteria, organisms, mold, heavy metals, phthalates, glyphosates. Like, I see BPA in people's, bodies. Can we optimize our body, immune system, cellular function, mitochondrial function, and can we combat it by using our own body's own functions? And I think that's where the game changer comes into play. So BPC 157, decreasing inflammation internally, instead of taking an NSAID. Instead of taking an antibiotic, can you take thymosin alpha? Instead of taking synthetic growth hormone, can you stimulate your body to secrete more? LL37, can you, instead of taking an anti-mycotoxin or anti-mold or an antifungal type medication, can you take a peptide that will tell your body to eradicate these things?
So it does it from a more natural response with less access to side effects. You're less reliant on it. From what I understand with the usage of peptides, you can wean off it more appropriately without being dependent on it for the rest of your life. And I'm just curious, what are maybe your top 5 favorite peptides, or maybe the top 5 most frequently used among patients that you've seen?
BPC 157 is probably the top. They've been using that for years.
Yeah, Rogan talks about that with elbow injuries from jiu-jitsu and grabbing onto the gi a lot.
Yeah. How's the elbow?
Awesome. That's definitely something I've integrated, and it's back to like, dude, I was having a hard time texting. I was having a hard time drinking a cup of coffee, walking my dog when he pulled on the leash. And I'm very happy that we integrated that protocol and highly recommend it for people out there.
Yeah, BPC 157 is, probably number 1. Number 2, CJC ipamorelin, stimulates growth hormone.
Why the blend? That's something I think a lot of people are always curious about, because people check out like what's it called, Peptide Scientists, and they see these different forms of blends. CJC 1295 is pretty well studied, and there's a lot of popularity there. But why paired with ipamorelin?
So your body's smart, right? So if you secrete more, it secretes more somatotropin. Somatotropin will drop and decrease growth hormone in the body. So anything that rises, it tries to grab it and pull it back down. So CJC and the ipamorelin combo will inhibit somatostatin and decrease that level while secreting more growth hormone. So it allows more into the system.
Is that the same or similar reason why BPC is often paired with thymosin beta?
Exactly. So thymosin beta will increase the anti-inflammatory effects of BPC tenfold, and they've been seeing that. So different combos are good, and obviously we're getting more and more research, clinically into using these peptides.
Very cool. So those being the top two, what would be number 3 that you typically have seen great results from patients as far as peptides?
Great results-wise, thymosin beta, paired with BPC, immune function, inflammation. That one's a big one there. Another peptide that I typically like using is MOTS-C right now. It increases mitochondrial function. So powerhouse of the cell will actually improve that. It decreases the chances of sarcopenia or muscle wasting. So that one's great. Another peptide.
I feel like a lot of people in this world right now, obesity is a big part of conversation. People want weight loss. What are the peptides that you typically use for weight loss?
Semaglutide's probably the biggest one. Trizepatide's the other one. So Ozempic, Mounjaro. But that specific peptide, they're making tons of that specific peptide. And they used it for obesity at first in glucose control, decreasing, chances of diabetes. Actually drop blood sugar, but it decreases appetite. So most patients are kind of using that now for weight loss. And negative side effects: nausea, vomiting, loss of appetite. But patients will get acid reflux, constipation, lightheadedness, so fatigue. So we'll combat, and then they can get sarcopenia, like muscle wasting, because they're not intaking enough calories. So this is where we'll use education, lifestyle, nutrition, but MOTS-C and mitochondrial peptides to make sure they don't lose muscle.
I like that definition. That way you can better understand. But you also honestly shared the side effects. And something that comes to mind, Jay, is in our world, negativity is so loud that it almost like marinates the headspace and just grabs all of our attention. But what's so interesting when it comes to medication or when it comes to big pharma, the problem that it's solving seems loud, and we're almost trained to not really pay attention to the side effects. Hey, take this for weight loss, but you're also going to have vomiting, and we're trained because we watch old school commercials, and it's like, here's the problem it's going to fix, but then it speaks it very fast in the small fine print as you're kind of like, is this commercial over yet? And so it's
May cause cancer.
Yeah.
Consult with your doctor.
Totally. And it deconstructs the headspace a little bit. We're almost trained to listen to just the positive effect of medication and disregard the negative effect. But then when it comes to world circumstance, the news trained us to do the other thing, which is pay attention to all the negative and disregard all the amazing positive. And so it's almost like the media and marketing has manipulated the headspace a little bit and how we understand all of these different processes.
I think the marketing is all fear-based, or this is what I can provide you. And obviously that's where big pharma has done well in is, hey, fear-based, or this is what can help. And obviously the negative side effects, they'll just mask it with another medication or supplement. And it's just really educating the patients on what is actual good health.
Yeah.
And it's encompassing of a lot of things, right? And it's tough to encapsulate into one thing. And this is where Peter Attia is great with, hey, here's specific things that you can do in your daily life that can improve. Huberman does it as well. And can you implement those small things over time to kind of change lifestyle? But if you're just talking about pharmaceuticals or peptides and whatnot, I'm like, can you do the one that's has the least side effects, and can you change the lifestyle at the same time?
Yeah, I definitely want to dive into that a little bit more. Peter Attia and Huberman are doing some really cool things for sure. But something that's also working really well for you and a lot of your patients is NAD therapy. What is that? And how do we kind of define that for people?
NAD is nicotinamide adenosine dinucleotide, but big fancy word for...
I'm glad you said it. I had it written down here, and I was like, oh, I can't say that.
There's no way. It improves mitochondrial function, but cellular regeneration. So think about as we were formed, chromosomes split between your mom and dad, came together, made you. And from that, you had to replicate over and over and over and over 30 years later. Now you're like, you got a heart, you got a brain, you got your eyes, you got all your nerves, you got your skin. Mm-hmm. But think about how your body has to replicate over and over still, right? Until you're 6 feet under. NAD is going to optimize that cellular health and replication over time, improve mitochondrial function, so energy. And there's a lot of neurological effects with it too. It increases GABA in the brain, so an inhibitory neurotransmitter, makes everything a little bit more calm, cool, collective. Then it decreases your dopamine threshold. Or you're on Instagram all day long, like you're stimulated over and over. It decreases that threshold so you can kind of get excited easier.
Interesting.
Then there's a lot
That's why it helps with the depressive side effects that people experience in their life.
I dance in the shower, like I'm dancing with the dog, and you'll know when I'm on NAD because I'm just firing at a high rate. Yeah. And then it binds onto a specific mu receptor in the brain. So opioids will attach onto a mu receptor. And as you wean off of opioids, you get withdrawal because that receptor is like, I want more. Mm-hmm. Suboxone's the cure, it binds onto it. NAD will actually desensitize that receptor and be like, hey, cool off, you're good.
Got it. So it can really help with people that are getting off addiction.
Exactly. So there's a lot of NAD centers out there, and that's how it kind of gained popularity. And then now it's like, now people are doing injections and patches. IVs I've seen clinically work the best. I do NAD IVs once a week. Shots you do a lot of. And shots are great, anywhere from 50 milligrams, 100 milligrams. I have patients doing 300 milligrams. But
what causes the chest pressure when getting NAD into the system at a relatively rapid rate? Like typically the IV is what, like 2.5, 3 hours for most people?
Yeah. I always describe it, there's a specific toxin in there that causes those symptoms. I always combat it with, you can use Zofran if you're doing an IV, but I always combat it with the more NAD you have, I believe that your cells kind of shrivel up over time and they almost like denature, meaning they're just like old, wrinkly cells. Mm-hmm. And then obviously NAD kind of plumps them back up. Yeah. And once they're plump again, NAD doesn't feel as bad.
Yeah. I'm envisioning like a backyard garden. If you don't tenderize it, those plants start getting shriveled, old, and just kind of dissipating. But if you tenderize that soil, give it some love and tender care, the fruitfulness is going to be plump and green and vibrant.
Exactly.
Very cool, man.